Hello, today I'm going to tie for you a detached body emerger. It's a bit of a pattern fly, but it has some advantages, especially late in the season, and I'll talk more about them as I'm tying. So I'm going to do this one on a size 14 lip splitter hook. It's a 135, it's from Lively Legs. It's a short curved hook, maybe a little heavy, but maybe we'll pull up a big fish with this. We're going to use a little bit of foam underneath. That's how we make that detached body. I'm going to use a piece of my shoestring cord for a shuck. And this is going to have a thread body and a thread detached body. So we're going to use that tan uni thread. And I'm using this piece of this Kevlar to be the joint to kind of hold the detached body to the hook. Going to have moose hair for the tail on the actual detached body part of this. I'm going to use this gray poly as a wing. That's that macrame cord. It's going to have a little bit of superfine dubbing for the thorax and a grizzly hackle. So here we're going to put a needle in the vise. And as typical, we'll get the thread started. And then I'm going to get a thin piece of that foam and tie it on underneath. So what I've kind of learned is if you want to tie on the needle and you want to make sure it pulls loose, and this is uni thread, so it's kind of got a little wax on it, it's got a little bite, but it still pulls off pretty easily because of that foam. So here, kind of fiddle around, and it's going to take a couple of looks and maybe even a do-over here to make sure that I get the length right. Trim that excess out of the way and work my way back, just kind of pinch down the foam. And I've looked back and forth here at the hook and kind of gauging how long I want to make this. So I'm going to stop there, leave a little stub of foam in the back. And you can see that turns on the needle, and that's just fine because we are going to want to pull this off when it's done. So there I think I've gone a little too far, and this is going to be a little bit too long, so I back it up a couple of turns. And I parked my thread right in there, worked my way back to knock some of those bumps down. And I've got a little clump of that moose hair. I think this was the moose body hair. And I don't know, I use a few too many strands, but I'd rather see the tail. Not sure if the fish prefer it one way or the other, but I like to see the tail on the fly. So we'll pull these down, wrap to the front. And again, trying to knock bumps down and keep it pretty smooth and fill in around. I'm going to go back to where I stopped the first time and come back up in the middle. And we're liking the looks of that there. Now I've taken a piece of that Kevlar, I doubled it over, I'm going to wrap it around a thread. I was looking at the camera and didn't realize I was on the wrong side of the body. And put a couple of turns on there and fold it in half. So that gives me 4 strands. And I'll pull that forward and get that tied down. And then those 4 strands are what I'm going to tie in when I put this detached body on the hook. So here we're just going to go back and forth a little bit, smooth things out. I've got a little bump there where I folded a Kevlar over that I don't quite like, but it's of no consequence. The fish won't care. It's just, sorry, it's not perfect. So I'm going to darken about 1.5 inches of thread with my permanent brown marker and use that to make a rib, kind of define the segments. There we just want to space these kind of evenly, 5 or 6 turns, come to the front. And we're going to do a whip finish right there. So I have 3 size whip finish tools, all from Wasatch. I grabbed the middle one thinking that would be long enough, but after further review, I should have grabbed the big one. Things got a little tangled up here, and then I learned how to bob and weave and kind of miss those and finish the knot. That's more or less our detached body. Going to give it a coat of Sally Hansen's. And the cool thing is when you use the marker, especially if you don't wait a long time for it to dry, the Sally Hansen's kind of lifts it a little bit. So there's, it kind of gives it a nice segmented effect where where I'm not sure you'll see it on camera, but it kind of darkens beside that thread wrap too. All right, so I think we've got it evenly coated. We kind of like that. Now, one little trick here is to grab those that Kevlar. You don't have to use Kevlar. If you want to use just a good solid, like, I don't know, 3/0 or 140 denier tying thread to hold this together. If the fish pull it apart, you're having a good day. So, but I grab those threads and put them in a clip, and I'll be able to keep them out of the way later. So I gave it time to dry, kind of shut off the camera for a minute, and going to come in and snip off that little butt that was sticking out below the tail. And we're going to turn it around and trim that excess off the front end of this body as well. So watch you don't get too close and get your thread in the process, but that looks pretty good. So we'll set that aside. Now we'll get our hook in the vise and get ready to build the rest of the fly. So, like I said, well, I started to say that this fly has some advantages late in the season. So these fish, that especially the ones in the spring creeks and whatever, they get pretty, I don't know, spooky. They've seen everything. They're there year after year, and I don't know. I just feel, and maybe it's just my confidence, but I feel better when I'm using something that's a little out of the ordinary, not exactly standard. So an emerger late in the year, if there's still a bug this size that's emerging, maybe it's not, maybe it's somewhat defective. Maybe it's had a little problem emerging, or maybe it's been beat up a little bit. It's been in the water a long time, but it's hung up in the film, or it's sitting there waiting to emerge. But it's going to look a little different than everything these fish have been seeing or have seen up till now. And I don't know, that's my thought process as I lay this out there. It's also got a little extra stuff there. This part hangs underneath. It's going to have a little different appearance as well. So here we're just building like essentially this would be the shuck that's left behind. So I threw a 1/2 inch in there just to make sure things don't come unraveled if I slip or do something different here. But again, just kind of working back and forth, smoothing things out, filling it in. Same thread, same black marker. You could vary the colors here if you wanted. That poly from that boot lace is the yellow strand. Makes a decent shuck. But feel free to use. I know the red strand and sometimes the darker colors work better as a shuck than this yellow, but this seemed appropriate at the time. So I got fancy and used my 1/2 inch tool there, and it jumped back a little bit, but I think we're fine. I pulled it forward and pulled it tight. So I'll adjust my hook in the vise. So we like the way that looks. We're going to have to trim the shuck. Trim it a little long at first. I come out a couple of times. In fact, even when I was done, I think off camera, I shortened it up a little more at the end, and shaped it a little bit. I don't like when they're chopped and they kind of fan out, so I came and knocked the corners off, but um, you do that however you need to, or however you feel more comfortable. So here we're going to come in with a little more Sally Hansen's. We're going to coat this part. Of course, I faded away, waited a few minutes for that to dry, and now we're going to add our detached body. So the tendency is to tie this a little too close and a little too tight. I probably even could have left this a little longer between the detached body and where I tied it down, give it a little more movement maybe, but that's going to work. So here's a piece of that macrame cord, or cheap poly, for those of us who are thrifty and trying to have generations worth of fly tying materials to leave to our ancestors. I think that one skein, I barely put a dent in it. So here, this is a trick. This is Tim Flagler's trick, the twist and furl, and then make your post that way. So if you watch him do it, he makes it look easier and does a better job of showing you what he did, or how to do this, than I did. So I'm going to trim these ends off. One footnote here, if you trim the back end off before you furl it, and you don't tie it down tight enough, you can pull it out. That's why I left that stub and I'm trimming it now. And maybe if I wasn't so ham-fisted, I wouldn't twist and pull that out of there, but either way, here we are. So give it another twist and start to build our post here. So I'm going to come around till I get coordinated here. It takes a wrap or two to figure that out, but get one or two wraps around to kind of pull in the bottom, and then from here it's just a matter of figuring out how far up you can go before you grab the top and pull it. I'm trying not to catch that detached body in the process, but I'm getting close right about there. I'll come down and straighten things up. And because it's a post and there's a lot of little pieces of different stuff here coming together, I'm going to put in a little drop of super glue. Use my needle, show you my thumb, but I'm going to push that around and get that to make sure that soaks in, and that'll all stiffen up for us. So this is a Grizzly saddle hackle, and it's like a size 14. I think in a perfect world, it could have even been slightly larger than this. Of course, I'm working from the bottom up. As I go toward the tip, it gets a little thinner, but I think the next size bigger hackle might have been okay too. So we got that little stub. We're going to chop that out. And I don't know, I've gone back and forth on this, and I used to like it the other way, but now I like the shiny side down, so that when I wrap the hackle, the fibers tend to go towards the post and up, and that way I don't trap so many. I don't think there's a wrong way, but some folks feel very strongly about which way to do that stuff. So I make a noodle of that superfine dubbing and build up a little bit of a thorax here. And since I'm not going to finish behind the eye, I kind of have to do a good job, taper this and fill in down there. And I'm getting the shape I want here, more or less. And it's about here I realize I have too much dubbing. And this long stapled dubbing is a giant pain in the butt if you put too much on. So I'm going to fight it a little bit, and I thin it out, come with another wrap, but eventually I'll get it all pulled away and slid up. And since I'm going to finish around the post, if I stop right there, I can use my scissors to trim off that excess dubbing. Okay, so that's all looking good. And now, since it's a parachute, and we've done this before in videos, and I don't think I invented it, but cut onto it pretty quick, and I like doing it this way. I shift that in the vise. Here, from handling that body or from when I was drying it, there seemed to be a little glob of that Sally Hansen's down on that butt end of that fly, so we took that out of the way. And on the posts, I like to put in a little drop of my thicker head cement. It's the Sally Hansen's from the older bottle that I had. So I'm going to wrap into a little drop of that. And that'll keep that post from wanting to slip over the top. Don't know that it would. I think the fish can chew on this pretty good without doing a whole lot of damage. I hope to catch a couple of fish on it before it falls apart. So I'm going to have to stop there. I might have wanted to force one more wrap up under there, but I didn't. I get a couple of turns to hold things in place. And since I don't want a nice wide band of thread down there under the parachute, I'm learning to trust this more and more, that if you just put a little bit of super glue and you do a couple of nice tight turns there, and since I wrapped into Sally Hansen's and so on, I really don't think this is ever going to fall apart right there. It's going to get chewed up first, and I don't think my thread's going to unwrap. But if you're feeling like you need a little more for belts and braces, you can always put in our drop of head cement above and below that Hackel. So here you have to resist the tendency to squeeze your scissors. You just kind of push them through and pull the thread against them. Same with this part. You don't want to take off more of those little hackles than you need to. So that was a push me, pull me thing. Kind of snip those ends out without squeezing. And we like it. I did trap a couple of fibers down. We'll do a little cleanup here. But more or less, that's looking good. Okay, so let's set it up in the vise and finish things. Okay, so I'll do a little primping, make sure everything looks good, push the hackle down. And let's snip off the tip of that furled post and spread it out a bit. So it furled up pretty tight, and it's going to take some prodding to unwrap, but it's starting to look good. And I like to cut them with a little shape like a mayfly, a little like rounded off and lower in the back. Again, you spread it out a little more than that, but it's not too bad. Catch that one more wild hair, and it looks pretty good. So the idea is, and even if that shuck and that under, like the part that'll be left behind that's wrapped on a hook, even if that doesn't sink and this kind of lays awkward and sideways on the surface, I think it's still going to do some damage. So thanks for hanging in there. If you want to learn more about me, look me up on Amazon. And until next time, be safe.